All right, we are hot, and right now you are watching Silencio Coffee Talk. I'm here with my buddy and partner Fred, and we have a small agenda today. It's a short one, and if people get on, we're going to do a Q&A, but we'll go and get into the show right now, and just go ahead and talk about a couple things. Fred, what's up, man? How are you?
Hey, Mike, I'm doing well. How you doing?
Good, doing well, man. So for our show today, and if you watched episode 1, we're just trying to introduce ourselves, who we are, where we're going, what we want to do, and how we think our show is going to be a lot different from a lot of shows out there. Um, and I'll get into that. I'll get into the details of why I believe that, and you can challenge that. But our goal, again, is to really be a voice for a lot of different things. Talk about leadership, talk about soldiering, talk about masculinity, and not just about community, which is coffee and rituals, but the importance of connection, the importance of understanding why someone feels disconnected and how to get reconnected. But I'm going to go through our agenda. I see we've got someone on right now, and let me check out the comments just to make sure here. And if any questions pop up, and they'll go into our feed and we'll put them up there. But today I want to go ahead and talk about our goal at Silencio Coffee. Silencio Nation, which Fred and I have been discussing for like the last week, and then really some of the products you get and what kind of guests would you like to have on. Fred, I'm going to kick it over to you. Any thoughts on anything that I shared?
Yeah, so I have one question. Am I going to see these? I don't see on my dashboard these questions.
When they come in, you'll see them.
Okay.
I'll post them up, but nothing yet. If someone asks a question, for sure.
I just didn't want to miss anything, man.
No, absolutely. Thanks for asking, because if it's not there, we definitely need to know about it. Let's see if we got any comments here. Nothing as of yet.
Yeah, so you mentioned the Silencio Nation. I'm pretty excited about it. Like, I think it's a great concept, and I'm looking forward to see, what everyone out there, the listeners at home, think about it, and if they'd like to be interested in participating. We've got some great ideas, some great giveaway stuff and membership benefits, which I think they'll like, and we can get opinions on those as well, what they think about them.
Yeah, so let's get into Silencio Nation. I mean, for those who are watching or will watch, our goal at Silencio Nation is really to drive a community to enjoy not just coffee, but life. And that is something where you go into a store and you're on your phone and you're just involved in your own little universe, and you're not really doing much. You're not paying attention to anything around you. We take so much of life for granted. Silencio Nation is really to take yourself out of that space for a minute and to be a little more introspective. You talk about the Zen with a samurai or something where they're practicing a certain aspect of awareness. And so the goal of Silencio Nation is just really to build a community of people who want to be more aware. You're either surfing or you're doing yoga, but it's mindfulness. It's this attitude of getting up early, maybe 15 minutes earlier than usual, turning off your radio when you're going for a drive, or you're taking a silent walk, and really just looking around you and trying to enjoy yourself. And you may not even have a coffee at that moment, but it's just this attitude of replacing some of that TV streaming or some of that radio sound in the background that you hear, and replacing that with silent reflection. I mean, what do you think, Fred?
Yeah, I agree. When I have my morning coffee, I'm all about taking that, even from the start, from making, and we mentioned this before when we talked on other interviews about that ritual, right? That prepping the coffee, grinding the beans, boiling the water, hearing the sound, smelling the aroma from the grinder. I'm using a French press on most mornings. Once that hot water hits those grounds and you can smell it, the smell billows out, and it just starts that mental process for me, my meditation, if you will, right? Thinking about the day, gathering my thoughts, organizing or planning what I have to do, immediately following that cup of coffee. But I take that time. I enjoy the quiet. Sometimes I'll put on the news and I'll kind of, watch the news, check emails, but that's kind of my personal reflection time when I start out the day.
Yeah, it's really important to have a 6-year-old grandson who lives with us. And when he gets done with his chores and everything else, he's homeschooling. He gets quiet time. He gets 20 minutes at night so he can de-stress and that he can just enjoy his little kid time. Because, he has his own feelings, his own thoughts as well. And we respect that. We prop him up on the pillows, and he's a little blanky, and he gets in there and he gets to read, and he gets to enjoy, and he has to just chill. Nobody bothers him. He doesn't bother anyone else. He knows, and don't interrupt. And so he is learning, this bedtime routine, which is so important. And so you're basically teaching your children this quiet time and this bedtime routine and this expectation of the future. Being able to regulate their emotions, being able to regulate their thoughts during times of stress and upheaval. So that's a huge thing. And the other part of that is also learning to ask questions and listening, or if someone's answering you, listening. Um, being involved in the conversation versus always trying to dominate. What do you think, Fred?
Yeah. Um, I don't know. The first couple hours of every morning, I don't really, well, I guess it depends if it's a work day or not. I don't really talk to many people, like today, for example, weekends. I don't see anybody for a couple hours. And, I get stuff done. I take the dog out for his walk, let him have his potty break.
Yeah.
You know, if I lately I'm on this binge of organizing my garage, so I'll go out there and I'll see where I'm at on my progress and think about some new ideas. No, I need to categorize this kit over here on this shelf, and then the camping gear over here on this shelf, and I take advantage of that time. And usually I have a coffee with me when I'm doing it.
Yeah. Now, if anybody's watching, if they have questions, please, I see a couple people that were on, just ask us a question. We'd be happy to answer it. But I think it's shifted so much, and you and I are the same generation, more or less, where we didn't have cell phones. Man, if you wanted to do a phone call, you had to go find a payphone, which is kind of funny. I remember about 40 years ago, we were on a road trip, and we had a convoy, about 3 cars, and we were catching up with a bunch of other guys going to L.A., and I just remember seeing a leg on the highway, and I looked at my buddy and said, I think I saw a leg. And then we saw an arm. And he looked at me, and I looked at him, I said, it's definitely an arm. So we pulled up our car to the side by side with the other car, and I'm pointing at the window, and I said, we got to pull over. We got to pull over. So we had to find a gas station. Basically what it was I think it was a I-5 killer. We had, at that just moment, he had just thrown out the body parts on the highway. And we got to the gas station, and everybody was pulling over, probably about 50 cars. People were talking, saying, did you see that? I said, yeah, I thought it was my imagination. But the point is trying to find a cell phone, a payphone. They didn't have payphones back then. I think it was like 20 cents to make a call. And the highway patrol said, yeah, we're on it. Everybody's aware of it. Everybody's calling. Our lights, our board is lit up. But today you have it where everyone has a phone, and they're on TikTok, they're on Instagram, and nobody knows how to get off, man. If they have it, it's just an inconvenience. It's an inconvenience to life where it should be the other way around.
I always joke around at work with the guys I work with. When I'm on the computer and it's something, the network's down or whatever, I'm like, what the heck did we do before computers and cell phones, right? And internet. If you think about them, like we're kind of getting up there. There's not many, people under us in age that know what it was like or remember well what it was like to not have cell phones and not have computers or internet.
Yeah.
So the
and
culture's
also
changed dramatically in the last 30 years because of that.
It has. It's an over reliance on it, and really. So for those who jumped in and listened, we're just talking about Silencio Nation, and our goal is to just build communities. And one part of that is the products that we would offer. If we have a membership, we're trying to figure it out right now, but a membership would be you pay a fee and you would get access to, for example, blogging articles and maybe videos that Fred and I do. Maybe he shows you how to make cowboy coffee, or where we talk about certain things. And there are a lot of things that we want to talk about, but the products you would get perhaps like a journal. I'm a huge believer in keeping a book. Now, you don't have to journal your thoughts of the day, your expansive thoughts, but it would be a book that's on your person. And maybe you jump on your Harley or maybe on your bicycle, you're going up in the mountains and there's a cafe up there. That's what I used to do. I'd go and get my Harley, and I drive up from San Jose up to Santa Cruz, up the top of the hill, and there was a cafe, and I would get out that notebook and I would write. So you could put in your gym notes, your reps and your sets, or you could just put down phone numbers or people you meet, just thoughts of the day. It doesn't have to be, dear diary type thing, but you'd have a journal. And we'll have one. I'll show it to you later, but it'll have a journal with some type of logo on the front, maybe a T-shirt, maybe a sample bag of coffee, maybe a coffee mug. So Fred and I were going to figure it out. But if you have some thoughts, jot them down. Comment down below. What would you like to see if you had a membership, and what do you think a reasonable membership fee would be? Like $15, $25. I've seen companies offer a membership, and you get maybe like 4 or 5 stickers a month, and you get like access to discounts on goods. Fred, what do you think?
I think, we talked about it. We do have different items like sample packs of coffee, right, that we could send out. And so people can try something different every month or whatever the time period that we choose to do this. I assume monthly. Notebooks, journaling. You talked a lot about journaling, and I know you're big into it. You're a big writer. I do a little journaling myself. Most of my journaling is like my PT plan or my workout plans. I plan those out every day. I journal them. I write down the workouts when I'm finished. I do journal in other ways if I have meetings or I have the honey-do list, the to-do lists, that kind of stuff. So it's a form of journaling, whether you think so or not. And most people do that kind of stuff. It could be something as simple as writing down hey, I don't want to forget to go get, milk, eggs, and bread, and then stop by the bank and withdraw $60 or whatever. That's journaling, whether you know it or not.
I completely agree. I mean, just to have something available, so you're not writing on napkins, man. I mean, and a lot of companies were built in Silicon Valley. They joked on napkins, right? Having these conversations at fancy restaurants in Cupertino or Saratoga somewhere, right off of Highway 9 or right in the heart of Silicon Valley before it even began. So keep something handy. If you're going to do it on napkins, great. But we'd like you to have maybe our journal book, and just make entries. But a lot of Silencio Nation, again, is just building this idea that whatever you're doing currently, don't stop doing it. And if that's attending religious or spiritual services that provide this opportunity for meditation, or maybe it's just taking advantage of unexpected downtime, maybe computer systems go down at work, and rather than mingling with everybody else, sit down and figure out where you want to go and what you want to do. Turn off a podcast. You don't have to turn it on. Drink your morning cup of coffee or tea in silence, or maybe just have conversations. A lot of times people go to a coffee shop and they sit and have conversations, but a lot of times it's just prattling on. How about a deep dive into a real conversation to talk about things you don't normally talk about, to really try to understand where the other person's coming from.
Yep. And we did mention possibly a monthly newsletter for those members as well, right?
Right. Yeah, we sure did. So that would be easy to do. We have articles right now, and if you go on our blog, you can see that. So if you go to silenciocoffeeco.com, you'll see it. But a lot of it is just really communicating with others about the importance of silence in your life, and trying to give other people silence as well. Giving other people space. A lot of times you have needs, which is your kids want you for something, or your spouse needs you for something, but understanding how to improve relationships as well by respecting other people's space. I know a lot of people say territory. I don't like to use that word in the realm of partnerships, but really that space. We live in a fast-paced world, right? We have these modern lives, and this modern life, it's so easy to overlook so much. It's easy to overlook our relationships. It's easy to overlook the mundane routines and just go with the flow and not even think about it. I mean, I know because I'm guilty of it. I have gotten in my car. Don't ask me how. And I've gotten to work, and I say, how did I get to work? So deep in thought, didn't even realize I went from A to B. And it's on autopilot, right? You're aware of the cars cutting you off. You're aware of the traffic, signals, but you get to work and you're wondering, how did you do that? But the importance is having a routine. It plays a vital role in your well-being, and it gives you that sense of stability. And so Silencio Nation is really building community. Again, I'm going to say, if you have thoughts on what that would look like, let me know. Maybe it's surfing, maybe it's swimming, maybe it's playing sports, maybe it's even shooting. Some people get that real cool vibe, that chill vibe, either shooting or working out in the gym. You just put on your music and you're lifting and you feel good. And so a lot of what we want to do is explore that human need for community and that human need for the simple act of connection.
Yep. kind of resetting, using that moment of silence, if you will, or that period of reflection to reset the nervous system, right? Chaotic world out there, phones and computers and people and conversations and meetings and all this hectic, crazy chaos. You need to reset, right? The parasympathetic nervous system. You need to take a break, chill, deep breath, whatever that might be. You might sit in a cold plunge. You know, you might go work out, you might do yoga, whatever your method of reset is. It's important. It's important to do it, because when you don't do it, look at our healthcare system overrun with diabetes and obesity and heart disease and all these other issues. A lot of it is induced by stress. That's not the sole reason, but a lot of it, stress is a big factor in most of them, right? So taking that time, that moment of silence, that's probably not the right verbiage to use, that silent moment, or that peaceful time to reset and take advantage of clearing your head, clearing your thoughts. I do it every day. Meditation.
Yeah. And so
Easy
do
word,
I. I
though.
mean, because a lot of this is having coffee is what? Having coffee or tea or any type of ritual that you do is an anchor. And it keeps you pinned down to the world when everything seems to be flying away from you, right? It gives us that sense of control, that sense of stability. It gives us, amidst all this noise that's going on around us, that we are actually able in our routines to enjoy just for a moment, you know, that cup of coffee. And that's why you see so many commercials, good to the last drop, you know, these commercials they've had on TV for decades, where we understand very simply in visual visual content online created this process of de-stressing, and we encourage that. We want you to do that. And so when you're grinding your beans or you're boiling your water or you're savoring the aroma, really get into it. Sit down and for a moment, don't be so mechanical. Don't be so automatic. Don't be so instinctual, but actually make it a process. Try to get involved in it and try to see preparation as something that is really connecting you to a sense of your life that you probably didn't even pay attention to for a long time. Just automatic every single day. For a moment, walk away from that and say, you know, I actually want to enjoy. I actually want to chill. I actually am doing everything automatic, and it's not really helping me see things clearly.
Yeah. To coin a phrase, what is the one they use? Netflix and chill. And I know that has ulterior meanings. Silencio and chill.
Yeah.
Cheesy, I know. Just randomly popped in my head.
So
let's we talked about interviews. We've done a couple already, interviews with some different guests. Let's ask and let's discuss what kind of people we're thinking about bringing into the Silencio Nation for the interviews that we're going to conduct. I know we have a whole wide range. I've already got a list of people. I talked about, in fact, Pete Lopez at War Dogs hit me up today. He's like, hey, man, am I still going to do the podcast? I'm like, yeah, man, you're going to do the next one, I promise. So I forgot to mention to him that we were doing a live Q&A today, so that was my bad. I apologize and everything, but he's ready to go, man. I think he's gonna come next Sunday if you're down for that.
Yeah, I'm absolutely up for having Pete on. I see people watching right now. If you have any comments, questions, my question to you is, what kind of guest would you like to see on Silencio Coffee Talk? So if you have a thought, jot it down.
I know that you have a huge network of connections and people that you know and have worked with and friends with, especially with, you know, your website and your articles that you write. And, you know, I have a network of people that I know as well. A lot of them are veteran community. Some aren't, right? Like, just to give you guys a little teaser, I have a buddy who's an AC-130 pilot. So during the global war on terrorism, he was the guy flying around that big C-130, and they were wreaking havoc on bad guys, providing close air support when it was needed, and saved my butt more than once, as well as lives of many other people that I know. So that's one. And there's quite a few other. And I know, Mike, you've got probably a laundry list of guys or folks that you want to bring on as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to open it up to the audience as well, and they don't have to follow up now, but comment later on. I mean, who do you want to see? But Fred, we've talked about this, and we don't want to just be operator heavy, right? That's not where we're at.
Right.
That's not what we want to do. We don't want to be operator heavy. We don't want to be all GWatt, because a lot of other people have different interests, and we want to be inclusive in that we are providing great information to people who have an interest, maybe, in what we're doing, but not a heavy interest in what we're doing. And that means just the operator GWatt thing. I mean, we would like to talk to guys who are in the fitness, you know, who have a fitness background, or they are a nutritionist, or they are into the self-defense combatives, or maybe they're doctors, maybe they're lawyers. They talk about even the social dynamics, how to raise boys, how to build teams, how to integrate with people, to build brotherhoods, how to be community driven. So we'd like to talk to a lot of people, therapists, psychologists, counselors, about behavioral science and marriages. So that's all very fascinating stuff.
I was kind of chuckling myself here a minute ago. I thought of I forget, it was a couple podcasts ago maybe, where it was our intro, it was our first one, and we were talking about what we're trying to achieve and our goals and accomplishments that we'd like to see. And I mentioned I want to sell coffee to everybody, like soccer moms, magicians, engineers. So
I met him. Which is funny because Fred said magicians, and I'm like, how many magicians are we to sell to? Which is so funny. My wife says, by the way, you're going to the mall and you're going to take Abel to the magic show. I'm like, magic show, and there's a magician there. I was cracking up. Like, I met maybe one magician in my life, but hey, they're out there, they need love too. They need love, and they need coffee. So
they have a very professional craft that they work on, and it's very entertaining. I used to love going to magic shows when I was a kid.
You know what? I actually enjoyed it. I'm 58, and I loved it. It was awesome. I'm like, I saw my first magician in like 30 years. That was pretty awesome. I had a good time. Right. But we want to sell coffee to anyone, and we want to bring everybody in. So, I mean, our view is, and we have quite a few people that we could bring on. I mean, we could bring in, we've got a guy who's run 100 kilometers a day for, 70 days, right? We've got 160 Asor pilots. We've got a Lutheran priest who's really into Lord of the Rings and mythology, which is really important for the understanding of, who you are, whether it's, Jungian psychology or Freudian psychology, but he would be interesting to talk to. We've got a former CIA PMOO, right? And he was working to building humanitarian aid in Afghanistan. We've got a couple SAS veterans. One was involved in Operation Nimrod, right, which was the 1980 Iranian embassy attack where they took hostages, and the movie 6 Days was based on that. I've got a couple other people would be kind of neat. We had Jeff Struker, Black Hawk Down. We could bring him on for this show. Fred, I mean, what do you think on any of that as far as guests?
Yeah, I think having different backgrounds, I think that's kind of key, right? We don't want to have special forces guys or Marine Raiders on like every episode, even though we know a bunch of those types of folks. But yeah, I think a wide mix, and like I said, feedback from our audience would be greatly appreciated. Feel free to leave a comment and let us know what you'd like to see for sure.
Yeah. So let me get into some of the products real quick, and I'll show everybody some of the products that we're looking at doing.
Mike, you don't just sell coffee?
What's that?
You don't just sell coffee? Is that what you're telling us?
No, man, we have a lot more. For those who don't know, we do a lot more in coffee. So let me get through this real quick, and then feel free to check out our store. But we've got this fantastic shirt here, which is my favorite. Now, the one Fred is wearing currently, which is the green night vision, you'll see that. But this one is all color. Love this one. And the one Fred is wearing, I've got the Nirvana, which is, you can see me wearing it right now. And I love this one so much.
My favorite band, by the way.
Yeah. That one is, oh, is it? I didn't know that. That is?
Oh, yeah.
I just learned something new about you.
Yep.
I did not know that. All right. If you had said Smashing Pumpkins, I would have hung up on this podcast. we would have never talked again, man. So we've got that. We've got the awesome stoneware mug, which is fantastic. Beautiful thing. Those are 25 and they're well worth it. People tell us all the time how hefty it is. It's got that beautiful logo that we've got. We've got tons of stickers. We've got about 120 different variations of stickers. This is a Silencio coffee
Mike,
and pistols. Yeah.
Mike has a special place for stickers. Let me tell you, I've seen his garage and his sticker arsenal. I mean, inventory. It's quite impressive.
Yeah, we have a lot. We go online, go to our website, check that out. And the last one I'm going to show you is a little fun here, Blind Tiger. So we got that one. We've got a lot of great stickers. Check out our products. But if we do Silencio Nation membership, you'll get some products, and I think we'll get into the blogging. But getting back into some of the things we do want to talk about is bringing on people, and I think it's really important. I don't want to avoid it, which is just to watch the world pass by. I think a lot of times is when you do coffee or tea, that element is of taking yourself out of the world. And I understand that. You do the Japanese tea ceremony and you take yourself out of the world, right? In a sense, when you're doing a ritual, you are in placing yourself into that ritual and partaking of that to get away from the noise. But at the same time, we have a crisis in the world, and not just in America, but as is the confidence of children, the confidence of boys, particularly because I'm a man, right? And for girls, but boys are facing a crisis of confidence, and they're following whomever is out there, giving them advice. And by the time you get to 8, 9, 10, 11, you lose them. And that innocence is gone, and they're fraternizing with their friends or the phone, and they're getting their advice from other people. And so how do we help boys find their place in the world? That is really important to me. And Fred and I talked about that is, you can enjoy your life, and I think you should, but you also have to be involved in such ways that you're leaving a legacy for other people. You're doing things that help guide people with their decision-making process to help them understand who they are, where they're going. And we want to practice what we preach. And Fred and I talked about that a lot earlier, which is to be honest, to be forthright, to be temperate, to be, very much involved in the community. And so that's what Silencio Nation is. Even though the show, we're talking about a lot of things, it really comes down to being aware, not just of who you are in this world, but that the world, what is it and how does it relate to you? And what can you do? We have a question here. Someone wrote, Jesse said, all of these potential future guests sound exciting. So thanks, Jesse. Appreciate it. If you have a question, let us know. Absolutely.
Or a recommendation for a guest that you'd like to see, or some type of area you'd like to see a guest, that's what area they might be in.
Yeah, for sure. We want to talk about mentoring as well. That's really important. I know Fred does that. Even though Fred is a very capable person and he can show you a lot of gun skills, but he can do a lot more on that, survival skills. But mentoring, I know he can do a class on mentoring and leadership. Fred, why don't you talk about some of that? Because I know that you have gotten people spun up for selection as well.
Yeah, so mentoring is kind of that's like a legendary, not legendary, I'm looking for the right word, just throughout time, it's a process that's gone through the ages, right? If that makes sense. Mentoring, that's how, tribes, when they have young boys that are crossing over into that threshold where they become men, they have mentors. They have mentors that show them how to hunt. It could be fathers, uncles, older brothers, whatever, neighbors that show them how to hunt, show them how to hone that spear or build that bow out and set the right tension and to be able to kill an animal to bring home game so the village can eat, right? I enjoy mentoring. I do it for my full-time job. That's kind of what I do. I work for a military unit as a contractor, and I pretty much train the young guys now, the warfighters now, what I used to do, 20 years ago, 10, 20 years ago. And I enjoy it. It's fulfilling for me, and you could call that selfish, but you can see the reactions in their faces when they learn something new, a new skill, or they get something down, an SOP, a standard operating procedure or something like that, and it clicks, and it's like, oh wow, okay, thanks. That that fills my heart, so I enjoy doing it. Talking about the prepping guys for special operations selection courses, I've done that. I've with my side company, Storm Tactical Consulting, I call it soft prep or special operations prep, and it's basically, I think we were doing 3 days, 3 day courses. I think I might have done a 4 day. We've done a few of them. And had guys come from all over the world. I had a soldier from the Australian Army come because he wanted to try out for the SASR over there. And I set up, depending on the students and what they were trying to achieve. I had some guys that wanted to go to Special Forces Assessment Selection. I think I had one that wanted to do Ranger. He wanted to go to Pre-Ranger and RIP and be successful there. So I'll give you an example of the SFAS guys, right? Army Special Forces, the Green Berets. So they took a PT test when they showed up early in the morning. I think it was like 5:30, 6 in the morning. And then immediately they were given instructions for their follow-on events for the days or throughout the day. I made them, I gave them some classes on basic land navigation, map reading, a couple other classes, tying some knots, because they were going to use those through the weekend. Negotiating some obstacles, building some apparatuses that would that would try their mettle, their intestinal fortitude, right, for lack of a better term, to see if they, truly have to think deep inside their hearts and their minds. Is this something I want? Because some of the events that I gave them, it tested that, like, how bad do you want to do this? But it was also in a learning type environment. So if it kicked their ass, right, I pulled them aside. I gave them a class. Hey, this is one of several techniques that you can use to build this apparatus to make it last for the next 5 kilometers that you have to carry it to your next checkpoint. We did some basic movement through the woods, some traveling formations and traveling techniques. And that comes in a little later down the road when they start doing patrolling and small unit tactics. But just different events like that. And they loved it. They ate it up. And then at the very end, we had a little celebratory bonfire, some beers, we cooked some food, and we just had a good time. We had, I don't want to call it a ceremony, but like an informal little ceremony / graduation, if you will. And it was fun, a lot of fun, a lot of very intensive on the backside, right? The logistics, but a lot of fun to run those. But that was kind of a long-winded answer. But the mentoring, the mentorship part of it is crucial. That's how boys become men, young men. How young men become old men is through mentorship.
No, I totally agree with you, and we will be doing a couple shows like that because I'm a huge believer that if you don't know who you are and where you're going, you're going to be lost, man. Honestly, you're going to be lost in your mature years, and you're going to look back and say, I was never taught this. And what I'm talking about is these rituals that provide opportunities when you're doing mentorship. I mean, even if you're just giving someone a handshake after they leave a graduation, that's impactful. Maybe not to the instructor, maybe it is to the instructor, but to a lot of the students, even those who fall out and don't succeed, they remember it for the rest of their lives that they didn't make it. I mean, when I was in the Marine Corps, we had 135 guys and we graduated 55. And I think 50 of those probably shouldn't have come. I mean, my standards are pretty high, but 55 graduated, and that was pretty tough. High turnover. And then Fred's unit and his background, there are very few people to get to Fred's level. And so we want to talk about that because a lot of these things, these are traditions and these cultures that men create, these small cultures or subcultures, whether it's bike culture or surfing culture, or whatever it is based in culture, it connects us to our roots and heritage. If we don't know what our roots and heritage are, we're going to wonder. And so people say it's very important that the instructor, a mentor is teach you something. It's philosophic, right? He's getting into something deeper than just, okay, it's a class. I'm a teacher, you're a student, and I'll see you, in life, maybe one day, if ever. But a mentor, he's teaching you something you keep with you for the rest of your life, man. That's impactful. And so you get that handshake upon graduation, or you get a coin or a card or a pat on the back or something. You take that with you. I mean, I know a lot of guys that go through a lot of academies and they get t-shirts. They want to buy that first FBI Academy t-shirt. They're proud to wear that thing. So that's really important. So Fred, no, that was not long-winded. And I definitely want to talk about that more, which is mentorship, rituals, traditions, cultures, and the impact of having masculine men in a world where there's a crisis of confidence for young boys.
Yeah, that masculinity part, you hit the nail on the head with that. That's a buzzword that stirs up a lot of thought, a lot of emotion. You know, it's become almost like a curse word nowadays in some parts of society, which is a shame, right? Because it's a crucial element. It's a key trait for a man to become a provider and a protector and a leader, right? Not saying that the two are completely related, being a leader and being masculine, right? There's plenty of great women leaders out there that are not masculine.
Right. Yeah. There are a lot of great women leaders, and we will have some women guests on here as well, talking about some of. I've got a friend who's an FBI agent, fantastic. I tell you, she could do more push-ups than a lot of guys, and super fit, but honestly, a great person. And there are those people out there. But since we're just talking, and there's not a real schedule here, I would like to talk about that. These are this aspect of coffee. And having coffee is tied so deeply into who we are as people. And that comes out of the rituals, right, that help us transition from one place to another. So when you're talking about graduation, you're talking about being a boy to a teen, to a young man, to an adult, and then to an older man. And it's very important. So that is this transition from one place to another, one phase to another in your life. They talk about midlife crisis. Some people have them. Most people have them. Lots of people don't. But how do you bridge the gap between the different states of mind that people have? And how do we do that? They're connectors, which is different rituals. Coffee could be one. Again, getting a tattoo is another. In a lot of rituals, they have the hunting rituals, or they have the mating rituals, or they have the gang rituals, right? These initiations. They have the bar mitzvah. So that's very important. But we do want to talk about a lot of that. And let's see here. Jesse says, that's what she say here. She says, can I show that? It's not popping up that question. Well, it says your coffee has a very nice, powerful aroma. How do you achieve that? Is it mainly because of? Oh, thanks, Fred.
I got it. I'm on it.
Appreciate it. Go for it. Answer that one, man.
Let me read it. Okay, so the aroma for the beans, it's derived a couple of ways. I'm reading the last part here. Hold on. Mass-produced coffee. Okay. So if you notice, if you open a bag or a can of mass-produced coffee, it does have an aroma. It smells like coffee. Then open a bag of, like, say, Silencio coffee, right, where they're small batch roasted specifically for us, for our requirements. There's definitely a difference in the aroma. Now, the different aroma or notes of the aromas that you get depends on several things, right? The origin of the bean, the soil the bean's grown in, how the bean is roasted. That's the big one. Is it a light roast? Is it a medium roast? Is it dark? Or is it like an espresso, like super dark roast? That will affect the aroma as far as how cooked the bean is, right? Just like cooking a piece of chicken. If you cook a piece of chicken and it's still pink on the outside, it smells like raw chicken a little bit if you cut into it, and it smells a little bit like cooked chicken. Or if you throw it on the grill and you char it, it smells kind of burnt, right? So coffee beans are the same thing. When you roast the coffee bean, the darker you roast it, the more I don't want to say a burnt smell, but a more cooked aroma the bean has. The oils will start to extract more so to the surface, and the bean will get shinier. And then you can tell that bean, not just the dark color, but the oils on the surface, that it was roasted longer than, say, a light roasted bean. But there's a lot of factors that play into the aroma. But the easy answer to that, the short answer is it's the roasting. When you open that can, you're smelling that roasty smell.
Very cool. So I'm going to get back to what I was talking about. And listen, you can agree with me or you can disagree. But my thought on that is, again, coffee and the Silencio Nation. And really it comes down to this idea of materialism, that there's this degradation of society by materialism, that we pursue so many things, which is keeping up with the Joneses. We want that big truck, we want that big house. And I like nice things. I'm a capitalist, man. I like having nice things. You know, I like having a heater. I like having an air conditioner in the summer. I like those things. But I think a lot of it is that when we change so much as people because we are degraded by materialism, that we forget who we are. And we're walking around with everybody else who's lost and blind. And we're like, how did I get here? I'm just as lost as anybody else in the grocery store. And so there's this focus on who we are as people. And so that is my goal. And I believe that's Fred's goal, is to be very aware of who you are. And well, how do you get there? You know? And so when does a boy leave his father? Should he ever leave his father? When does he leave his tribe? Sometimes you're going to leave your tribe. You have to leave high school. That's your tribe. You have to leave your football team. You're going to leave your military service and you're now a veteran. You're going to leave other places. You graduate, and those are traditions, and those are things that you do, and then you leave, right? So you leave your family and you have to start all over. So how do you navigate that? And that's a very difficult thing. So I do want to talk about politics, philosophy. I want to talk about geopolitics. I want to talk about those things and touch on it, all with the sense of how does it relate to the brand Silencio Coffee and Silencio Nation. It's just being aware, because we can talk about coffee all day, probably for a couple years or episodes, but I think that would be kind of dry. And I think it's important to talk about who we are and where we're going as it relates to enjoying coffee as a key to being aware of who we are in this world. Does that make sense, Fred?
Absolutely. Mike, if I seem a little distracted, I apologize. I'm trying to find some pictures. I was going to play with this thing a little bit and show some
go for
pictures.
It, man.
We talked about mentorship. I'm still looking for them.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm looking on my Instagram and maybe share some pictures of some of those, those obstacles I mentioned. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. But I was talking about, like, in the Freudian sense, everything is very mechanical, or it's very, it was sexual, right? It is very instinctive, and it is going in a mechanistic way through life. Or in the Jungian sense, it was that collective consciousness that all people had, the sense that man was bigger than that. If you saw everything very sterilely, very mechanistically, you don't really have a sense of who you are, I believe. And going with the Jungian sense, the archetypes, that everyone has a sense of these archetypes, the archetype of the hero myth, or the archetype of the man or the woman, and where you are. So it's almost in a supernatural sense that you have a view that you can accomplish so much. It is this view that there were myths that we latch onto, and this idea that there was purpose and there was some greater truth, or there was some greater knowledge that we could pursue. And so it wasn't finite, it wasn't fixed, but that the world was so big, it was so expansive, and thoughts and ideas are so grand. And I want people to enjoy that. I want young boys to have the self-belief. We talk about the surfer gods, these young boys who go out and they do things. When you see the movie, and I think we'll even talk about movies as well, like Big Wednesday, right? Written by the guy who wrote Red Dawn. He wrote Conan the Barbarian, right? And so John Milius, this idea of Big Wednesday, where these guys know that they've got to catch that final wave, because I think one or two of the guys is going off to Vietnam and going off to war. And so childhood ends and their tribe, that brotherhood, ends. And so how do you enjoy that? How do you enjoy that and yet know that you're going to grow as a person? So you lose a sense of yourself. But this idea of the young gods, the young boys, the young men who have this great self-belief, and then when they go out to society just crushes them. And then when they're crushed and they're going through the war machine, or they go through the corporate machine, and they're rising up the ranks, and they're just not happy, how to get through that? And I think a lot of it is coffee, man, chilling and getting back to center and remembering who you were and those things that you practiced when you were younger, which is things that had value and things that did not degrade your sense of who you were. And those values were the traditions your father passed on to you, and the traditions that your mother taught you in the kitchen, and the traditions that you learned around the evening table having supper. Maybe some people didn't have that, but you're sitting around the supper table and you're talking about your values and where you stand as a young boy, as a young man, as a young woman, and these are significant takeaways that you take into life, so that you are either A, being so greatly influenced by the culture of the world, or you are influencing the world and the culture. And that's when you look at the Mavericks, and a lot of these people say, I'm not going to conform to what you want. I'm going to think for myself and think freely and go out and change the world, whether it's in music or in arts, in movies, and drive other people or let other people drive you. And so it's a give and take, but I definitely want to talk about that. Fred, did you find what you're looking for?
No, I quit. I gave up. Just because it was, I don't know, for some reason on Instagram on a computer as opposed to on a phone, when you try to click on one of your posts on a picture, it's like a little tiny square picture.
Yeah.
And I don't think it would have looked right on here. So I'll save that for the future. I'll share some pictures on some of the stuff that we did mentoring young men. I do want to kind of jump on that bandwagon you're just talking about. You know, you mentioned cooking specifically. So just to give the audience a little background for me, before I was in the Army, I was involved in the food service industry. I actually worked from a young age. I started when I was a teenager in restaurants, but I went to culinary school and I was a chef. I was not an executive chef, not a head chef. I didn't have that much experience, but I did work as a sous chef, which is like the 2IC in a kitchen. Right before I joined the Army, I worked at a few different places. I worked at some Italian restaurants, seafood. I did work at a country club. That was my last place of employment before I joined the Army. So one of the skills I acquired, not just in culinary school with cooking, or was cooking, but not just in school, was when I was growing up. My Italian grandmother, watching her in the kitchen on Sundays, making the sauce and making the pasta and making all the meats and all the sides and the desserts, and like watching her every Sunday, watching her like fry the pepperonis to brown the meatball in that oil, and her mix the meatball with the pork and the veal and the ground beef, and cooking all the meat in the big pot of tomato sauce. But for Sunday it wasn't tomato sauce. Tomato sauce became gravy, right? Sunday gravy, we call it. It's just a big vat of tomato based meat flavored sauce that you put on pasta, meat gravy or meat sauce, whatever. But that was kind of my mentorship at a very early age. When I learned was watching my grandmother. So your mentor does not have to be a man or a masculine person. Your mentor can be anybody, was the point of this. And mine was my grandmother when it came to cooking, watching her. Both of my grandmothers, not just that one. My Armenian grandmother, she made a lot of Armenian food. I don't cook that as much. I don't cook much lately anymore anyways, but Italian food was kind of my specialty, but I love eating the Armenian food, and she was really good at making it. And I watched her make it. So I learned a lot from those two women. They had a big influence on my life, especially my early adult life.
Yeah, I love cooking. We can definitely talk about cooking. So you hear me talk about so much so because I love it so much so, talking about culture and traditions and all that. I was having a talk with my brother years ago, and his friend was a creator of garage punk back in the 1960s. He was part of the folk movement. Well, you think about the Kingston Trio and all these other bands, but the folk movement led into the counterculture movement, led into the hippies and everything else that we have today. And I wonder what's going to happen post GWAT. But as you think about post 1970s, right? Post Vietnam, and you had a lot of people who came back, and that counterculture movement came out in the 1960s where people protesting the war. They didn't like what was going on. And we didn't see that during GWAT where people are protesting. I mean, they believed, a lot of true believers, that we should have been in the Middle East. But really, it brought a lot of soft men on. So you had people who thought that stereotype of the angry Vietnam vet, which was, again, myth. None of it's true. When you looked at, a lot of the veterans that came out of the war, most of them became very successful business people. And you looked at CEOs of most of the top 500, big corporations, they were run by vets. So this idea of the angry Rambo first blood guy, that's Hollywood. None of it's true. Most veterans are very stable. That guy out there who's robbing banks and everything, saying he has PTSD, that's usually stolen valor. That's a story that a reporter wants to jump on and talk about and say, well, that's how vets are. That's not true at all. But that's Hollywood myth. But this idea of post GWAT, I mean, where are boys today? All right. Because we had a huge push with DEI and everything else. But after this 1970s post Vietnam and the counterculture movement, you had soft men. And there's that quote, right? Soft men, right? Create hard times. Today, what is it like for men? And I think a lot of boys are struggling. I know my own sons. I've got two stepsons. I call them my sons. One is 23 and the other's 28, and trying to figure out their place in the world where things are so expensive right now. Buying a house, buying food, trying to make it. But it all goes back again to coffee and the importance of traditions and the importance of finding your place as a nation, as a person in a culture. And so I wonder about GWAT, and we can talk about that. But how do we correct course? And what advice can Fred and I give out? Because Fred and I both have lived experiences. We have things that we've done. We're very different people. We have a lot of similarities, but we want to talk about what drives us, right? We want to talk about what made us succeed. We want to talk about how we handled failure. Because if you ask me about my military career, I'd tell you it's all failure. I didn't do anything as well as Fred. Just did, circumstantially driven, but I'm not a victim, not blaming anyone. But we want to talk about it as well. We want to talk about when there are modern times and an insidious movement to quiet the voice of boys and usurp the hard work of men. Well, how do you get through that? And we want to talk about that as well, because I don't want to just disappear. I'm not a voyeur. I'm not a person who sits in the woods and, watches the world go by and say, hey, see you later. I'm doing my own thing. No, I think we need to be in the fight. A lot of that is there are a lot of guys walking around with giant masks and buckets over their head and ignoring what's going on. They want to be blind to what's happening. And so we need to be out there and teach people the painful truth, but not just the painful truth about life, but also that there are things that they can pursue. And I talk about that with youth and the young boys and getting out there and being men and not being afraid to deal with the world, but believing that they have answers versus telling them that they're lost. Fred, thoughts on anything?
Yeah. You just gave me a mouthful to spit out. Hopefully I remember it all.
Go
you
for
said
it.
Warrior, watching in the woods. You hit the nail on the head once again. Our culture today with internet and cell phones and screen scrolling and, all those, even on TV, the media on TV, watching, streaming, anything you want at any given time has created a society of voyeurs, not actors, not people that doers, I guess. And it's making our society weak, right? We don't have those providers and protectors. We have watchers, standers by. Let me get my phone and take a video, or let me call 911. Nobody's doing anything. Man, yeah. You sparked a lot of thought on that.
Yeah,
one.
we could
I
talk for hours.
I could go for another
go
hour.
For it. Go for it, man.
I won't. But no, it's just. Man, I was going to say something now and I just lost it. I was trying to spit it out all as fast as I could. That's why I talk fast, not because I'm hyperactive, but I do drink a lot of caffeine. But sometimes the memory doesn't.
Well, we were talking about voyeurs and the guys with.
No, I know what I was talking about. There was another point I was going to add, and I lost it.
Hopefully there was one video I saw, which was a police officer, female police officer. It could have been a man, but she was filming her partner getting stabbed to death, and I just was blown away.
I know that one.
You know that one? And I was just blown away. Like, how can you watch your partner getting stabbed to death when that happens? And I've been in a lot of situations where I reacted and, hey, you could quarterback it after and say, hey, I shouldn't have done this, but what happened. But it's better to be involved than to sit by and see someone getting injured so terribly by that. But Fred and I, we don't want you to be voyeurs. And we want anyone who's partaking of Silencio Coffee and Coffee Talk know that what we're going to do is not be shy about the conversation. We're not going to just talk about coffee all day. We want to talk about very important issues, because that is the coffee roundtable. It's getting people, and they're not in the same room as Fred and I, but they are around a metaphorical table and having conversation with us, whether it's by putting on their questions for us to see, or we have guests on. And we don't want everyone to be puppets and drones that are going to agree with what Fred and I say, but they have their own contrary point of views. But we want to talk about a lot of this. And a lot of voyeurs is because they don't know how to handle a situation. If they see something go down, they're going to sit there and they're going to film it because there's some motive behind it. Why are you filming someone getting stabbed to death? Why are you doing that? I tell the story all the time. I was in Hayton Ashbury one time, and this guy was running up and down punching people. I was with my girlfriend. I said, I can't believe this guy is just doing it. Nobody's standing up and doing anything. So I ran across the street and knocked the guy down. And he got up after dusting himself off, and he took off sprinting down the street, and he was gone forever. And people came up and said, thank you. Shook my hand. Same thing. I was at the gas station, guy smoking a cigarette, and I said, are you freaking crazy? Put that cigarette out. And he said, what'd you say? I said, put it out, or I'm going to have, some words with you. And so he jumps in his car, locks the door. A couple people came up and said, thank you. We were too afraid to say anything. And I said, this is bizarre. The world is afraid, right? We have people who are afraid to do the right thing. Go ahead, Fred.
It's funny. Wow. Another like parallel universe for me and you. I remember the black guy Steve Stoops mentioned our last podcast with him.
Yeah.
When we met. So that black eye was because I did just that same thing. I was, he said it was a bar fight. It wasn't a bar fight. So we were in Steamboat Springs, Colorado, doing some training, and we were taking the night off, kind of relaxing, having a couple of drinks, and it was karaoke night in this local pub. So it was closing down. We were coming out, walking to our vehicles, and across the street, I could hear these two girls yelling and screaming. It sounded like they were in duress. And there were some guys there with them. I think there was three or four. I think it was three. And so I ran over there. I was like, hey, are you guys okay? You guys need help? Is everything all right? And they're like, F you, buddy. Go F yourself or something like that. I'm like, okay, well, you didn't have to, you didn't have to be like that. I was just, it sounded like you guys are having trouble or whatever. And then one of the guys on this side sucker punched me. Boom, hit me in the eye. That's where the black eye came from. And I'm not going to get into the details of that night, but those gentlemen did not come well prepared, because behind me I had four of my teammates, and they were just across the street coming out right after me.
Yeah.
And so
didn't end
it
well.
was an interesting, but it's because I don't know. He was grabbing her, and I could hear him, or I could hear like a physical, hey, stop, leave me alone, like screaming. She was cursing at him. He was cursing at her. So I ran over there. I was like, hey, you guys need help. And then they told me to go F myself. So I was like, all right. And then
I mean, a lot of people, they don't want to get involved because they think they're going to get hurt. And that's true. We can't predict everything, but there are indicators, right? You want to look around. You want to see, okay, you're outnumbered, and you're trained, right? You have skills, you have experience. And I know you're not just going to run over there and just be a kicking bag for people, and neither am I. I mean, I look at a situation and say, okay, should I go? I was hearing Jocko Willnick talking about something, and he said if someone were to challenge him to a fight, he'd just run away. He said, unless they put hands on me, I'm just running away. And I'd say, yeah, that's the way I am. Honestly,
that's a smart thing to do.
Yeah, walk away. Someone's going to pull out a gun and shoot you, stab you, whatever. But if someone's getting hurt and you can do something, man. If you are prepared like me, and I carry, I'll say that right now. I mean, I'm packing. I will do whatever I need to do to defend myself and my family and whoever's an innocent person. I think that's what we have to do, what we want to teach boys. Because here's the thing. And weak fathers and mothers, they crush boys and infuse them with their own bleak view of the other parent. And when a weak mom has a view of her husband, she is going to manipulate that child and crush him. Likewise with a father as well, or an uncle or an aunt or a grandma or whatever. And so this thing is to how do we counteract that? Well, we counteract that with storytelling. We counteract that with leadership. We tell a boy of what we believe he is. He's not a loser. He's not a bum. He's somebody. But we also have to hold him accountable as well. And so we'll talk about that as well, which is what are people's values, what are our values and what drives us, and hopefully it plays out into other people. Fred, any thoughts, anything?
Yeah. So it's kind of another funny story.
Yeah.
I was just glancing down at my show notes, and I made a note because you mentioned the Silencio shirt. I'm wearing the OG Night Vision logo, right?
Yeah.
Silencio t-shirt. And we're talking about young men, not being as well equipped to deal with threats or problems or issues out there in today. But it has created some, I call them telephone tough guys, right? Internet keyboard warriors or tough guys. And I'm sorry, the story is kind of funny because it just happened to me I'm cramping up, I'm sorry, I'm getting old, this week. So in order to try to push this podcast out for a little more reach, I joined Reddit. I didn't know anything about it. Somebody commented, I think it's the person that actually asked us a question about the coffee, commented to us, hey, and copied and pasted literally an entire message. Somebody posted a picture of me and posted on Reddit and said, hey, this guy, and he's one of the pages I follow on, I found out later on Instagram. He has some pretty cool pictures, right? Some really cool guy photos. And he posted on Reddit, hey guys, in this JSOC archives forum, hey, this is, Fred Fusco. He's one of the owners of Silencio Coffee. He did this, this, and this in the military. He kind of went into my background a little bit, which, whatever, man, people know. And he also mentioned Silencios, and he mentioned you specifically to go check us out, and we're doing a podcast. So this person cut and pasted that and sent it to me in instant message. I'm like, oh, cool. Let me check it out. So I went on Reddit. You have to have an account. So I just signed up for one, and I knew nothing about it. Like, there's all these different terms and verbiages that Redditors use. I didn't even know what a Redditor was until I discovered this week. So let me pull up my post. I've been plugging our podcast quite a bit on some different forums. One is a podcast forum that you can share podcast information on. And another one is the JSOC archive, since I was in the command and I currently work in the command as a contractor. So I think that entitles me to post on their chat room, right? So this is where the green night vision story comes in. So I remember that picture I edited last night and I sent you of me doing the logo.
Yeah.
I doctored the colors and make it look like green NVGs.
Yeah, I like that one.
And it came out really cool. I was pretty proud of myself.
Yeah, I was going to ask you to show me how to use that because I want to play with that stuff.
That was Lightroom, right? I think you told me about Lightroom originally.
Yeah, I've never used it, but I was aware of it. I want you to show me later on.
So the story is, the meat and potatoes of the story is, I'm trying to pull up the messages here. Okay. So here it is. There's the post. Yeah. Right? The picture. I couldn't believe how many little shits, excuse my language, they're young guys, right? I can tell by the way they talk and the verbiage they use, but started talking crap because the first one I posted, I cropped it and I chopped the top off a little where it said Silencio. So I redid it. I reposted. But the initial post, they were beating me up, man. They were tearing me up, calling me a homosexual, calling me all these like names. And I'm like, oh my God, listen to these kids, man. These like keyboard commandos. Like, if you only knew MFer, right? So I just thought it was funny. I got a big kick. Me and my son were talking about it this morning, laughing over our Silencio coffee, having some bonding time. My son came this weekend, which was pretty cool. Got to see him. But yeah, man, these young guys, I assume they're guys. I think it sounded like guys, were just beating me up, like talking all kinds of trash and like, really? Do you know? Like, come on, man.
Well, they don't. And that is a problem because
it is a problem.
I mean, this show we're having today is going all over the place, but I'll tell you, it's a good subject.
I want to cut it outside, out there in the street. You know what I'm saying?
Like, we should have another talk about this on another episode too, for a whole hour or two, and talk about combatives and something, because this is great content to talk about. And I understand. I had the same thing. Someone's trashing me on Instagram, and I said, I will meet you at SHOT Show. I will meet you at this room. I told him, and I got blocked. But this guy, I did, and I called John Valentine, who's a combatives instructor, and some of the other guys. Now listen, I'm not that great, but after a while, you say, look,
I'll give it a good college try, though.
You're being silly, and I'm trying to avoid it, but you leave me no choice. I'm doing my best, and that's where it comes down to is, as modern men, I mean, have we turned into wimps? Are we becoming into sissified, guys where we look cool on the outside, but inside we're just a bunch of whimpering little men And we don't
Made
want
it
to be like that, you know?
made it okay to insult people and downgrade people and talk shit about them online, but
Well,
that's not the real world. That
yeah,
doesn't work
that's
like that,
hard
guys.
because as a Christian, I'm supposed to turn the other cheek, and I'm
Sure.
trying to be as kind and gracious as I can. But at some point, now it doesn't mean I'm just going to stand there and let you whack me down, right? It's not Obi-Wan Kenobi. I'm not Darth, having a face off with Darth Vader. I'm going to stand there and say, okay, I'll come back stronger because when I die, right? I'm not going to come back in some Jedi
Yeah.
spirit, to talk to Luke. It's over forever. And so I have to kind of consider that, and I choose my battles. But that's the other thing we have to ask about is, how do we get to this place where young people no longer revere the old? How do we get to a place, and is that a cultural thing? Because that's a question to ask. When you look at other cultures, right? And the family lives together, they live communally. Here, maybe in our fast-paced American world, is you get out of the house when you're 18, see ya, mom, see ya, dad, I'm going to the Marine Corps or whatever.
Yeah.
And in other cultures, they, okay, I'm going to take care of my mom, like in Japan. Like they have a whole culture of young people taking care of the elderly. And that's also another problem in itself, because there are a lot of people who are outpacing the youth, and they're dying, and there's not enough youth to take over, and they can't get jobs, et cetera. And that's another issue that happens in Korea as well. But how have we gotten to a place where boys, I'll say boys and girls, but boys large, because I can speak to that, are no longer respecting men, no longer respecting elders. They're getting on Instagram and TikTok and blasting people. Whereas you wouldn't have a phone call with someone 20, 30 years ago on a phone. They wouldn't call you on a landline and do that. You're anonymous. It just makes no sense. But the technology allows you to do that now. The technology allows you to rat pack on people and just blast people in the comments. We see that on many, many pages on Instagram where, they just rat pack on people. But the question is, Fred and I, we don't want to live a life where out there and impress people. We're not going to tell stories and brag to impress people. That's not our goal. Our goal is to help people.
Unless we're talking to investors. Unless we're talking to investors.
right.
Just kidding.
Right, true. But here's the thing. The disconnect happens because children want to be noticed, children want to be honored, and children want to be taken seriously. And how do they do this without being vain? You look at the movie Troy, where Brad Pitt is playing Achilles, and he tells a young boy, if you do not do this, you will not be remembered, right? And that's why no one will know your name. And do we live like that, like Achilles, or do we live more like who was a character? His foe, Patroclus. I can't remember the name. It's been so long.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, a long time ago. You have the loyal, dutiful son who's protecting his wife, who's protecting his kingdom, et cetera, et cetera. And Achilles, you can see, is a very angry, petulant child in a sense, right? He wants to be remembered as a hero. And so we see that a lot of people are affecting certain mannerisms to be taken seriously. We see that in the veteran community. And so we want to do things where we are taken seriously and kids are taken seriously. We're trying to help young men do that, but not so much so that they become a cartoon character. They're not a real person. They are, again, going from one culture to another, which is you're going from maybe high school culture into biker culture, right? The leather jacket, tattoos. This is a man. This is what a man is. Giant beard, I'm a crazy guy. Don't mess with me.
Beard and sleeve tattoos all tatted out. And
yeah. Well, yeah, you see that a lot, right? You see the picture, the meme of the unit guy, and he looks like a dork, right? He's got, these big bifocals, and he's slinging a rifle, and he's a bodyguard. Like, boy, that dude looks dangerous, At the same time, he has a goofy face, looks like he's a nerd. You wouldn't want to mess with that guy, Clearly got some skills. But I don't see any questions coming in. Anyone? Thoughts? Nope. Fred, any thoughts? You want to end the show? You want to keep going?
No, I think we could probably wrap it up soon here. Yeah. Just we don't want to, overdo it, but
yep. So let me do my final thoughts, and I'll let you do your final thoughts on this. Guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Basically, what we're going to do is talk about Silencio Coffee, Silencio Nation. That's the idea of how to deal with our fast-paced world and really taking yourself out to have these really wonderful rituals that you create for yourself that are significant, that are mundane, but at the same time they are supernatural. They teach you how to revere your elders, to how to honor your family. These simple rituals that maybe resonate with you and your family, that are impactful, things that you do every day, that are traditions, that are legacy for your family's family. This is how you do it. You're not just making coffee, but you're doing other things as well. We want to talk about that. So yes, we will talk about the process of grinding beans, but we also want to talk about what it is to be a man or a woman, what it is to be involved, what it is to not be a voyeur, what it is to honor people. We want to talk about leadership and soldiering, a lot of those things. We want to turn young men into young boys into men, and we will be talking about a lot of things, and we'll have hour-long shows. So again, this was a Q&A. We're hoping to have more questions, and we will get them. But we will work with you guys and just give you our viewpoints on a life and where we're at. And we hope you'll stay with us and grow with us. Fred?
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. I agree with everything you just said. Guys, we need your advice. We need your opinions. We need your input, because that's what we're trying to grow this thing. We're trying to make ourselves better every day and live better lives, right? That's the end goal before our time's expired, before it's over. Make sure you go ahead and subscribe to our channel, leave a comment, leave us feedback. If there's a guest you'd like to see on here, let us know, because the feedback is crucial, like I keep reiterating every time we talk. But Mike, thanks for doing this and setting this up, and it's good having you as your friendship and your camaraderie. I appreciate everything, and thanks for your mentorship, my friend, with the intros and listening to you talk, and because you've done this hundreds of times, and this is my fourth podcast. So
yeah, you're doing good. I mean, listen, I'm figuring it out as well. But guys, I mean, Fred and I have been friends for I think 8 years, but we are learning a lot about each other since we started this business. We're learning that we're very, very similar. In a lot of ways, we're different. So it's about building tribes, whether your tribe is 2 or 10 or 50 or 1,000. Really, how do you have that? How do you become a leader in your own household, and how do you impact a society? That is our goal with Silencio Nation. That is our goal with Silencio Coffee and Coffee Talk, to really talk about things that are meaningful. We don't want to talk fluff, man. If that is what you want to do, that this is not the show for you. We don't want to talk about fluff. We want to talk about real important stuff that are affecting people, like divorce and marriage and having children and combat and dealing with death, and those are important things. So looks like Freddie's got something to say here. He said he likes the tribe talk and passing things on to young people. So I think that's wonderful. So I'm done. If Fred, I'll let you have last words, and then we'll log off, guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. God bless you.
Yeah, folks, thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe and ring the bell, do all the things. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you later.